People in our neighborhood knew Mr. Jeff as a vicious shapeshifter. He didn't choose a specific time or place. He attacked whenever he wanted. I'm Tasso, not my real name, from Mississippi, and what I'm about to share is something that happened to me back in 2003. That night, I got home late because there was a local basketball league game in town. The town was several miles from our rural neighborhood, and I had to take a bus to get back. Coincidentally, that evening, I ended up sharing the ride with Mr. Jeff. He sat silently in a corner of the bus. Now everyone said he was a shapeshifter, but I didn't get off. I stayed on board, thinking maybe he wouldn't do anything, especially with so many other passengers. I was seated on the right-hand side of the bus, so I could see all his movements. I kept glancing at him, watching. During the ride, he just stared blankly ahead. When I followed his line of sight, I realized he was fixated on a pregnant woman sitting a few seats ahead. She had a pleasant smile and was busy texting on her phone. Mr. Jeff's calm expression slowly shifted. I noticed the redness creep into his eyes, and suddenly he started drooling. The light inside the bus was positioned in a way that illuminated his face perfectly. I could see every bit of his sinister expression. Before he could even stand up fully, a loud voice rang out from the other side of the bus. It was a large man seated next to the pregnant woman. "Don't even think about getting closer unless you want your head blown off," the man warned, subtly flashing a gun. Mr. Jeff stiffened and slowly sat back down. That's when I realized I wasn't the only one watching him. Other passengers who recognized him were also keeping their eyes on him. He didn't stay on the bus for long after that. He asked to stop and quickly got off. "Good riddance," someone muttered. I honestly thought he would go through with whatever he was planning. I even heard a few whispers among the other passengers after he left. Finally, I felt like I could breathe again. I glanced back at the pregnant woman, who was wearing a police uniform. Because of what Mr. Jeff did, he became the main topic of conversation for the rest of the ride. His name was all anyone talked about until I reached my stop. That night, I could barely sleep. I kept thinking, if that woman's husband, who turned out to be a cop, hadn't been there, Mr. Jeff might have attacked someone. That night taught me a lesson. Since then, I've avoided going home too late, just in case I ever ran into him again. But a few weeks later, I heard that Mr. Jeff had died. According to the story, he tried to break into the house of that same pregnant woman, but a drunk man nearby attacked him with a machete. Turns out there was a drinking session happening right in front of her house, and they heard her scream. Thankfully, nothing bad happened to the woman or her baby. One of the drinkers said they caught Mr. Jeff crouched near her, and they all rushed in to stop him. One of them grabbed a blade and struck when the moment was right. Mr. Jeff had gone completely wild, uncontrollable, even with several men restraining him. I don't know what happened after that. The last I heard, his body was burned right away. Not long after, my mum got a job opportunity in New York City, and we moved there. A few months later, my dad followed. I continued school in the city, but didn't finish because my girlfriend got pregnant early. Now I'm a family man, working as a manager in a fast food restaurant. But every time I think back to what happened in our hometown in Mississippi, I get chills, especially when I remember the terrifying figure of Mr. Jeff. Good day, sir. I'm Dion. I just want to share an experience I had while riding a tricycle on my way home early one morning after work. I used to be a call center agent, but now I run a small business here in my neighborhood. Listening to horror stories on YouTube became a hobby of mine, and your channel is one of my go-tos. This happened back in 2009 in New Jersey. I remember it vividly because it was raining hard that night, and it was difficult to find a ride, especially since it was already past midnight. There weren't many drivers out. I wandered around, hoping to come across a tricycle or something similar. After a few minutes, a tricycle pulled up in front of me. and I immediately got in. I told the driver where to drop me off and closed my eyes. I was exhausted and my body was aching, so I fell asleep fast. What woke me up was the sudden stop of the tricycle. I looked over at the driver and felt a wave of chills. I saw he had no head. I gasped and instinctively covered my mouth. A few moments later, the driver spoke. That startled me. I slowly turned toward him and saw that he had a head again. I cleared my throat, trying to calm down. I asked him why he had stopped. He said, "Didn't you see the old man crossing?" He was moving so slow, it's why we were stuck for a bit. I was confused. I hadn't seen anyone cross the street. I even asked him if he was sure. He insisted there was an old man. I didn't press the matter anymore, even though my whole body was shaking from the eerie feeling, plus it was freezing cold that night. I kept glancing at the driver's face from time to time, trying to reassure myself I had just imagined things. Maybe I was half asleep earlier. Eventually, we arrived safely at my place. After paying the fare, I stepped out of the tricycle. As I turned my back, a cold wind blew behind me. I spun around and saw the tricycle speeding off, but again, the driver had no head. I bolted into my rented apartment and locked the door behind me. I couldn't sleep that night thinking about what I'd seen, especially the part where he mentioned the old man crossing. I never saw him. The next morning, I woke up to some news. There had been a tricycle accident exactly where the driver had stopped that night. It had crashed into a tall wall, and the driver was found with a head injury, covered in blood. I didn't even know what the driver looked like yet, but I already had a bad feeling. My heart sank when I finally saw a photo. It was the same man who drove me home, the one I saw headless. I started asking around. One person showed me a picture of the same driver. That's when it hit me. There was a meaning behind what I saw. They say if you see someone without a head, something bad is going to happen to them. I couldn't shake the guilt, like I should have done something to help him. Maybe it had something to do with the old man he saw, the one I didn't. To ease my conscience, I just said a prayer for that driver. That's all I could do. Good day, sir. Just call me Jamie. I'd like to share a personal experience I had with my group of friends during a trip we took to a beach house in South Carolina back in 2015. There were 8 of us, really close friends, and it was one of those rare times we were all able to get together after being busy with our individual jobs. Some worked in government, others in the private sector, so our schedules rarely aligned. That's why we were so excited. We took 2 vehicles, both owned by friends. The rental wasn't expensive, and the house looked amazing in the pictures. Bright, modern, near the beach and close to local shops. We left from DC around 11 p.m. and arrived at the beach house in the early morning. It was a bit of a hassle traveling that late, but we didn't have much choice. We were only staying for about a day because of everyone's tight schedules. The place was a bit tucked away, but nice. A caretaker welcomed us, handed us the keys, and gave us a short tour. He told us to just text if we needed anything. He lived nearby. Even though it was dark, the interior of the house looked great, spacious and clean. We each settled in to rest a bit before the day's activities. One of our friends, Tina, who we all know has a third eye, said she felt something heavy in the house. She said the house was full of spirits. Another friend, Jason, brushed it off and told her to forget about ghosts and just enjoy the trip. I told Tina the same thing. We were there to bond and have fun. She just nodded and said she'd try to act like she didn't see anything. We were all used to her abilities by then, and truthfully, we had never encountered anything dangerous when she sensed spirits. Since it was still early and our activities wouldn't start until later in the morning, we all went to sleep. Everyone was sleeping soundly when suddenly we heard glass shattering from the kitchen. Some of our friends rushed over to find about 3 broken plates on the floor. The problem was, we were told we'd have to pay for any damages. We had no idea how they got broken. The cabinets were closed, and all the windows and doors were shut. It was odd. Someone or something would have had to open the cabinet and drop the plates. We cleaned it up and tried to go back to sleep. The next morning, over breakfast, we talked about the plates. I said maybe a stray cat somehow got in, but our friend Joy claimed it was a bad omen. Jason dismissed it again, saying we were just scaring ourselves. "We should just enjoy this," he said. "It's not every day we get to hang out like this." Everyone agreed, but I noticed Tina was quiet. I pulled her aside to ask. She said the spirits in the house were messing with us, especially one male spirit who found us amusing. I told her again to ignore it, that maybe the spirit was just curious because new people were in the house. She said she'd try. Still, the feeling was starting to get under my skin too. I don't usually get scared, even when Tina senses things, but something felt off. We ate breakfast, and from the terrace, we could see the beach and the mountains in the distance. The view was breathtaking. Around 8 a.m., the caretaker, who we called Mr. Joey, came by. We told him about the broken plates. He said maybe a stray animal had gotten in, but we shouldn't worry about paying for them since it wasn't our fault. We appreciated how understanding he was. Later that morning, we walked to the beach. It wasn't far, and we brought our valuables with us. We wanted to enjoy the fresh air and the ocean breeze. But while we were there, our friend Eric stepped on a sharp shell and got a deep cut on his foot. Thankfully, we had a first aid kit. Tina, however, refused to go near the water. I talked to her, and she said a male spirit was following them from the house, one who seemed to be enjoying our company. I urged her to have fun, pulled her into the water with us, and even though she tried, she still looked uneasy. She said she didn't feel comfortable in the house at all. That night, Tina, Eric, and I ended up staying together in the living room. Eric was too scared to be alone after what Tina had said earlier. I was trying to keep it together, mostly because I felt bad for Tina. Then she suddenly whispered that the male spirit had followed us back from the beach and was now sitting with us in the living room. An hour later, the rest of our friends returned from exploring. They started cooking and grilling while we set up the table and chairs on the terrace, which had a great view. We all ate together, then sang, danced, shared stories, and just enjoyed ourselves. It was one of the happiest nights we'd had in a long time. For a moment, I forgot all about the heavy feeling and what Tina had said. Around 9 p.m., Tina said she was going to bed. I let her go, though I was still worried. The rest of us kept having fun until Eric brought up what Tina had said earlier. The group fell quiet. I shared what Tina had told me too. Some of them said, "Let it go. Tina's always been like that. Let's just enjoy the night." Even I, who doesn't have a third eye, was scared to go anywhere alone. I had to ask someone to go with me, even just to use the bathroom. Around 1 a.m., we finally called it a night. I lay down next to Tina. She was still awake and told me the man had been staring at her all night, watching her as she slept. My skin crawled. 2 other girls in our room heard her too, and we all ended up huddling together in fear. The next morning, we returned the keys to Mr. Joey, the caretaker. He looked at Tina and asked why she looked so uneasy. We just told him she was tired. We packed our things and loaded them into the cars. Eric and one of our guy friends, Brian, rode with us, while the rest joined Jason in his vehicle. As soon as we hit the road, Tina and I dozed off. Neither of us had slept well the night before because of everything that happened. I was just thankful we were finally on our way out of that place. About an hour into the trip, Tina suddenly stirred and stared at Jason's car ahead of us. I asked her what was wrong. She typed a message on her phone and showed it to me. The spirit, the man, he followed us. He's in their car. I froze. Eric decided we should pull over at a convenience store. We didn't want to tell Jason and the others what Tina had seen. They might panic, so we just said we were grabbing snacks. The truth, we were stalling to figure out what to do. While inside, we brought it up again. The man Tina said had followed us from the beach and watched us while we slept. I told the group to stop scaring each other. The trip's over, I said. Let's not keep spooking ourselves. After eating, we got back in the cars. I asked Tina if she could still see the man in Jason's vehicle. She said she couldn't see him anymore, but she could still feel his presence. I told her maybe he was just somewhere nearby, not necessarily with us anymore. We decided to leave immediately. While in the car, Tina suddenly whispered that she believed Mr. Joey, the caretaker, had known all along, that he was aware there was a spirit in the house, that he knew it followed us, but he didn't say anything, maybe because it was a common presence in that place. I was frustrated, but what could we do? We were already on our way home. Still, it seemed the pug we did at the convenience store, the Filipino practice of stopping somewhere before heading straight home to shake off spirits, had helped. Tina said the spirit had left Jason's car, or so we thought. Around 10 a.m., I noticed Tina staring blankly at the side mirror. I asked her again what was wrong. She held up her phone with another message. He transferred to our car. He's right behind us, and he's smiling. Goosebumps covered my arms. My body went cold. I was too scared to even glance behind me. I just grabbed Tina's hand. I showed the message to Eric. His eyes widened, and Brian almost swerved the car from shock. We were all visibly panicking. I typed on my phone, "Is he still there?" Tina typed back, "He knows we're talking about him." That did it. We couldn't take it anymore. We asked to pull over again, saying we needed to use the restroom. We found an old gas station and rushed inside. The others thought we were just in a hurry to pee, but truthfully, we were stalling again, hoping the spirit would leave. When we came out, Tina looked toward our car. Eric stared at us with a silent question in his eyes. "Was he still there?" I asked Tina as we walked toward the car. She stopped and said quietly, "He's waiting for us." Eric heard her and looked terrified, but we had no choice. We got back in the car and tried to be brave. Brian focused on driving. Eric played loud music and sang along to distract himself. I tried to stay calm, but it was getting harder. Minutes later, Jason's car pulled over too. We followed. When we got out, Jason told us one of his tires had gone flat and needed to be changed. While some helped with the tire, Tina told the others what was going on. They were just as terrified. One of them asked Tina if the spirit was still there. She nodded. "He's still watching us," she said, "and he's smiling." We all stayed outside the cars while the tire was being changed. Eric suggested we go to a church. Maybe a priest could help drive the spirit away. We agreed immediately. Tina was already terrified and had said it was the first time she'd experienced a spirit that actually followed her around like this. While we waited, our friend Joy suddenly threw up and said she felt sick. We gave her some medicine, but it all felt connected. Everything, from Eric cutting his foot at the beach, to the broken plates, to the flat tire, it all seemed like a chain of bad luck following us, and we blamed it all on that spirit. After the tire was fixed, we drove straight to a church Brian knew in the area. It was almost noon. Inside, we all said a prayer, hoping the spirit would finally leave us. Eric spoke to the priest he knew, and after hearing what happened, the priest joined us. He asked where the car was, then went outside to bless it and say prayers over it. He also gave us some advice. Always pray before you leave for a trip, and when you're heading home, together if you can. It's stronger that way. He also spoke privately to Tina, acknowledging her ability. He advised her not to engage too much with spirits, not to stare too long or acknowledge them, because once they know she sees them, they're more likely to follow her. He also suggested she pray for the spirits or ask them not to follow her. Thankfully, after the blessing, Tina said the male spirit was gone. Joy felt better, and even I noticed the air felt lighter. Since that incident, we always make it a point to pray before and after every trip. It really helps ease our fears. The only sad part, Tina rarely joins us now. She's become reluctant to travel with us, worried something like that might happen again. We miss having her around, but we understand. Even though our schedules are still busy, we try to find time to see each other. We're still close. We're still a Barkata. Thank you, sir, for reading my story. I hope you can share it on your channel. Stay safe, everyone, and God bless. Good day to you, Mr. Seth. Just call me Martha. This story happened to my family in the year 1993. It was even mentioned on our local radio station, and there was a bit of legal drama at the time, though it never went far. I've heard other stories that were eerily similar, but nothing hit home quite like what happened to us. So, it was 1993. I was just 2 years old when my grandfather fell gravely ill. He was only 70, but after falling off a tree in our backyard, his body began to break down. That fall triggered all the hidden sickness in him. He became paralyzed. His back had taken the full brunt of the fall, and a few months later, the paralysis started spreading to other parts of his body. During the early stages, when Grandpa could still speak and recognize his children and grandkids, we started noticing strange things. There were strange clicking sounds, whispers, weird animal calls, and these weren't just any sounds. They were ones we couldn't place, couldn't explain. They hadn't happened before, not even once. Grandpa's house used to feel peaceful. Our homes were close together in the small town where we lived. The road was the only thing separating the houses of our extended family. But ever since that fall, odd things began happening, only around Grandpa's house. At first, we thought Grandma and one of our aunts were losing their minds. You see, we'd just finished dinner at our own homes, and suddenly we'd hear shouting coming from Grandpa's house. It sounded like someone was being scolded, or maybe even fought with. We assumed they were upset with Grandpa, but when our parents went to check, they said there was someone, or something, scratching the roof, or that a strange black dog was pacing around just outside the window, near Grandpa's bed. They also said they heard heavy, raspy breathing in the backyard, whispers, but deep and loud. It was baffling because the backyard was wide and fenced in. There was no clear path in or out. Even more baffling, we couldn't hear any of it. My parents just told us never to leave Grandpa alone. Then came one particular night when it was our family's turn to take the night shift. One of our aunts had an errand, so she couldn't stay. That night, my older brother, already a teenager, was the one sitting by Grandpa. Everything was quiet until we heard a voice calling out. Grandma and Mum were already asleep. The voice said, Hey, how's your grandpa?" Half asleep, my brother, assuming it was Grandma or our aunt, answered back, "He's okay, I guess." But something felt off. He got up, looked out the window, and saw an elderly woman, hunched over, slightly hidden. He didn't recognize her and wondered why she was there at that hour. The woman asked if she could come in. Without hesitation, my brother stood and walked out of the room to open the door for her. I, on the other hand, froze. The woman was now reaching her hand through the bars of the window. Her hand was so thin it slipped between the iron grills. That's when I screamed. Grandpa didn't even stir. He was deep in sleep. My brother came running back just as Mom woke up and rushed in, fearing something had happened. But the hand? Gone. Mum was furious. She scolded my brother for even responding to the voice. That's when the realization hit. It was 11 p.m. What kind of person stands in someone's yard at that hour, reaching through the window? But that wasn't even the end of it. Moments later, we heard heavy footsteps outside. Something, or someone, was dragging its feet across the dirt. But the scariest part? Grandpa's dogs didn't react. They didn't bark, growl, or stir. That's when Mum yelled out, "Leave now! You're lucky he can't walk anymore. If he could, you'd be dead by now." She was angry, but more than that, she was afraid. She later told us she had been hearing the sound of a tick-tick, a type of creature that preys on the sick and dying. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I couldn't hear what she heard, but just seconds after she shouted, something scratched the wall, followed by a loud bang on the metal roof. Then the squealing of a pig, on the rooftop. Then came the sound of wings, flapping, as something took flight. Mum was furious, shouting into the dark. But here's the thing, no one outside our house heard any of it. A few days later, after coming home from school, I was told Grandpa could no longer speak. He could only grunt. That morning, he was smiling and asking how school was, and by that afternoon, he was completely unresponsive. Apparently, something had happened while I was at school. According to my brother, someone came for him. An old childhood friend of Grandpa's had visited the nearby field and found him completely out of it. When he got home, he caught Grandma and one of our aunts being scolded by a local healer, Miss Lena. She was furious. She kept yelling, "Why did you let them in? Why did you leave him alone with those strangers?" The two women were speechless. So what exactly happened? After lunch that day, everything had seemed normal. Grandma was washing dishes, and our aunt was doing laundry. Then they heard someone calling from outside. When Grandma peeked through the window, she saw an elderly couple, people they'd never seen before. The man looked a lot like Grandpa. He claimed to be a relative, and since Grandpa's family history was so messy, they believed him. They let the couple in. Grandpa was sleeping, and the couple went straight to him, stroking his hair, touching him gently. When Grandpa woke up, he asked who they were. The man simply said, "It's me, your cousin, from the other town." The mood turned light-hearted. The couple was warm, almost familiar. After chatting for a bit, Grandma excused herself to return to the dishes. A few minutes later, she turned around and saw the old woman standing behind her in the kitchen. The woman asked to use the bathroom. Grandma pointed her to the small bathroom in the back. Meanwhile, our aunt noticed the woman lingering in the backyard, commenting on the plants, admiring the layout, and smiling weirdly. Then the barking started. All of Grandpa's dogs were barking toward the front yard. Then they heard the old man yelling, afraid the dogs might bite. Grandma rushed out. Somehow the old woman had already exited the bathroom and was now standing beside the man. There was only one way out, through the back door, but none of them saw her pass through. The couple said they had to leave, but would be back later. They were going to visit more relatives in the neighborhood. As they walked off, Grandpa suddenly woke up, groaning, violently twitching, eyes darting wildly. He couldn't form words anymore. That's when the family called the healer and other relatives. According to the healer, those weren't Grandpa's relatives. If they were, he would have recognized them. What's worse, those strangers were a swang, but not the kind that eat flesh. These ones fed on energy. They drained the willpower and spirit of the sick. And Grandpa's Dungan, his spiritual energy, was already weak. The most terrifying part? The healer revealed that those weren't the only visitors. Grandpa had been getting different supernatural visitors every single night since his condition worsened. So, from then on, the family made a vow. Grandpa would never be left alone, not even for a second. 5 people took shifts at all hours. The lights were never turned off. Still, they heard calls from outside, banging on the roof, red eyes peering in from the dark, until one day, he passed away. But it was a peaceful death. The healer confirmed that Grandpa's spirit was safe. His body hadn't been switched or taken. We thought the nightmare was over, but we were wrong. The next morning, the embalmer arrived. They set up a small tent in the backyard near the bathroom to prepare the body. Grandpa's body was cleaned, washed, and massaged, just like always. But even during the embalming, they started to hear clicking. Then, they smelled something foul. It didn't make sense. The body was fresh. How could it smell rotten already? Then came a thud on the roof. One of my uncles, who was sharpening tools nearby, heard the noise and peeked over. That's when he saw a hairy black arm reaching into the tent. He screamed, grabbed a hammer, and swung. A massive creature shrieked and dropped from the roof. It looked like a boar, but with long limbs like a human. Neighbors rushed out and witnessed it. The creature spoke. "Stop! Stop! Please!" And in a flash, it transformed into an old woman, frail, injured, and begging. She claimed she'd broken her arm, but the healer and the family weren't buying it. The village captain arrived and tried to ask the woman where she lived. She couldn't answer. She was offered medical help by the local officials, but she fled, vowing to come back and have my uncle arrested for assault. My uncle wasn't scared. He yelled at her, "Come back any time! I'll be ready!" She cursed him and ran off. When the captain tried to hold her back, she showed inhuman strength. His arms were covered in bruises. That night at the wake, none of us kids were allowed outside, not even to go to the bathroom. The window behind Grandpa's coffin was sealed with bamboo and twined vines. For the next 7 days, no one was allowed to stay alone with Grandpa. Twice we found upside-down brooms and thorny vines placed by the door and window to keep the evil out. To this day, we believe we made it through that storm of darkness thanks to those precautions.